Now that was diabolical. Okay, so I just now got done watching season 2, episode 7 of The Boys, and whew, it, that is a lot to unpack from one episode. It was non-stop from the start to finish. I know I said last week that that was my favorite episode of the series, but I think this one's got it beat. It was absolutely insane, and I can't wait to dive in and start talking about it. So let's go. So the opening to this episode was actually probably one of the best openings they have. Um, Normally they don't really do the opening scene, and it really doesn't right away connect with what's happening. And same case with this one. You start off following a regular citizen through his everyday life, and he's just going through every day doing the same thing that he always does, and all you hear the whole time is the news. And on the news, there is talk about the protests. Some people are in support of Vought and the superheroes, and some people are against it, and it just gets too much for him. I think he kind of represents somebody in the public that isn't on either side, so it just kind of gets too much for him. He ends up killing the store clerk, and it was just a bad situation all around for him. I really liked also that it's kind of comparative to today's politics, and I don't really like to get into politics with entertainment or here on YouTube, but there was some things like with the protests and with just the two different sides hating each other that was really a mirror for what we see in today's society. So next we see the boys putting together a plan um, for what they're going to do at the Vought hearing, and Lamplighter says that he's willing to testify, and we see that Huey, his only job is to watch Lamplighter and honestly kind of babysit him, and we obviously see later that doesn't go over too well. But they're coming up with a plan, and they want Lamplighter to be a witness in that hearing, and they think it's going to go over really well for them. I thought that it would as well, but obviously it doesn't go through. So one thing I wanted to talk about during Starlight and her mom's little meeting at the coffee shop, she gives us a quote. She says, "The good guys don't win and the bad guys don't get punished." And I really like that quote because in a lot of corrupt businesses or a lot of corrupt situations, that's exactly what happens. And that quote can really be applied to our lives, not just in the show or in entertainment, but in today's society. There was a lot of different things in this episode that kind of could be compared to the real world, and I liked that. I like when entertainment kind of bridges that gap, and I just thought this was a really interesting quote from her. And then we find out that Starlight's mom actually called Vought, and around that time, smoke grenades get thrown into the coffee shop. Black Noir comes in and attacks Starlight, and that was kind of out of the blue for me. I didn't really expect that. It put a nice twist in the episode, so I really liked that they did it, but I wasn't expecting it. And then it cuts back to the boys, and we see that Billy gets a call, and it's from his mother, and she tells him that his dad has died. And when this happened, we later find out that he didn't actually die, but when this happened, I thought that he really had died, and I just couldn't help but think that Billy has really lost more than anybody in this show. And even though his dad is still alive, they don't have a good relationship. He doesn't have a relationship with either of his parents. His brother died, the whole deal with Homelander and his wife. He really has lost more than anybody in this show, and I really do feel sorry for him. Sometimes I don't agree with all of his choices, but I really do feel bad for him, and I really do think that he really has just lost so much. And then it cuts to showing Starlight trapped in some confinement room. And this isn't a room that we've seen before, so I kind of figured it was that Vought Tower, but we later find out that it was. But I kind of figured that it was, and we just see her trapped. She can't get out, and at that point in the episode, I was just wondering, what was going to happen to her, or what were the boys going to do to get her out? Would it be Billy and MM and Frenchie, or would it be Huey and Lamplighter? And I just thought that was a really nice touch to the episode. And then at a rally, Stormfront and Homelander end up telling the public that Starlight was a mole, and that kind of puts a bad image on Starlight. I think Stormfront later tells Homelander that she's trending #1. Starlight is a traitor or something like that. So by her being portrayed as the bad guy toward the public, that's going to put a really interesting twist on the season finale as to how people will view her, because she's always been viewed in such a good light, and people have always thought of her as such a good guy. So I'm really interested to see how the public's view of her is going to look in the next episode. So the next major thing that happens is Homelander actually takes Stormfront to visit his son, and I was not expecting this at all. It really put a twist in the episode, and almost the episode, that was one of the points that it kind of revolved around. And it was just really crazy to me that he would actually take somebody else there because his son is in confinement and doesn't know that he's in confinement. So it's really interesting to me that he took her there, and we later find out why. But from the start, I knew something was up. And like I said, later in the episode, we figure out what is going on with all that, and we'll get to that in a minute. So then Grace and MM go to Dr. Vogelbaum's mansion and try to get him to testify at the hearing as well. And he says that he won't do it, points out that he has a daughter, and he also gives a quote that I really liked. And he says that some things are more important than the right thing. And I really liked this quote because in life, we're often faced with situations where we have a choice, and sometimes we have to choose, like in his case, something that we're close to or something that we love, or we have to choose the right thing to do. And in his case, I really don't blame him for not wanting to go to the hearing, because your family's important, and he really wanted to take care of her. So I understand why he said that and why he wouldn't go, and I just thought that quote was really good from him, and it was a really nice touch in the episode to hear that. And then the leader of the Church of the Collective actually tells Deep and A-Train that he has a meeting with Mr. Edgar, and that more than likely they're going to get back into the Seven. Now, I'm not really sure if they are or not. I would say that they will. I don't think that they're going to be able to drag this plot line out with the Church of the Collective much longer. I think that the creators will have to put them back in the Seven. I don't really think it's going to be in the season finale next week. I think it'll probably be near the beginning of next season, but I just don't see them holding this Church of the Collective plot line out any longer than they already have. So then it cuts back to Homelander, Stormfront, Ryan, and Becca. And Ryan is showing them some of his Lego animations of different movies, which I honestly thought is kind of cool, but I'm a nerd, so I like stuff like that. But obviously, Stormfront and Homelander weren't really amused, but at that point, it was kind of clear to me that they were trying to take him for themselves. I had my suspicions, but up until that point, I didn't know for sure. But at that scene, I kind of knew before Becca and Homelander talked. I knew that that's what their goal was. In this scene, we also get a PewDiePie reference from Stormfront. So go sub to PewDiePie if you haven't already. I actually liked the scene between Homelander and Becca, their little conversation. Because for the first time in the series, Homelander actually had a good point. he doesn't want Ryan to grow up in confinement, which I understand. And the reason he doesn't want this is because he had to grow up the same way. He literally grew up in a lab. So he sees that his son is growing up in confinement the same way that he was, and he just wants his son to have a normal life. So I really don't blame him, and I kind of agree with him in this case. I don't really agree with how they do it, but I do agree with him that Ryan should be out in society and should be able to enjoy the things that regular kids do. So for me, this was the first time in the series that I've actually agreed with Homelander, but I did here. And then the Butcher meeting with Vogelbaum was really interesting because Vogelbaum kind of humanized Homelander, and that's something that we've never really seen. We always see Homelander as this leader of the Seven, this big superhero, just this powerhouse, almost like a robot. And Vogelbaum talks about when he was little how he basically just liked the same things that normal kids liked. Going out in the woods, and he really enjoyed nature. He mentioned that he always cuddled up to him. So it kind of humanized Homelander there for a minute and almost made you feel sorry for him. I know I kind of did, because I thought if he acted like that when he was little and then he's the way he is now, if he wouldn't have grown up in the lab, would he have been a better person? And you have to think that he would be. So I almost kind of felt sorry for him in this instance, but I'm sure that won't last. And then from here on out, everything in the episode just kicked it up to like level 13. Lamplighter actually leads Huey up to the main floor of the Vought building, where all the soups are, where the conference room is. And when he gets there, he literally sets himself on fire, and Huey ends up cutting off one of his arms with a glass bottle, and I really still don't know how that worked out, but Starlight escapes because the power from the fire hazard light in that little confinement room she was in allowed her to use her powers to bust her way out, and she walks into the conference room, and Black Noir is waiting on her, and he kind of jumps her, and it really isn't even a fight. It's so one-sided. He's just throwing her around like a rag doll, and I didn't know where it was going. I didn't think she would die, but I did not know at all where this was going. And then out of the blue, Maeve comes in and kind of beats up on Noir for a second, and then pulls his mask off and shoves an almond joy in his mouth. And I was like, what's going on? And then she says that he's allergic to peanuts or tree nuts, and then kicks the EpiPen away from him. So with that being such a heavy scene, the comedy kind of made it a little more lighthearted, and it made me root for Maeve more in the show. She seems like she really wants to do what's right ever since the whole plane incident, so I really liked that scene, and I really liked her change of character. And then Homelander and Stormfront tell Ryan about the confinement, and Ryan is mad at Becca. He says that Homelander flew him up and showed him that everything was fake, all of the neighbors, that they were just living in this kind of bubble. So this really turns his attitude away from his mother, and now we see that he wants to go live with Homelander and Stormfront, and he runs over to Homelander. Homelander goes up into the sky, starts flying away with him, and that is really, really interesting to me because I didn't expect that to happen in this season, which maybe I should have, but that puts a huge twist on next week's episode and then the next season. So I thought that was a really great touch to almost end the episode on. We have one more scene after this, but I really, really liked that scene, and I'm really interested to see where they go with Ryan. So then the absolute chaos ensues, and for the last minute and a half of the episode, my entire jaw was on the floor. I did not expect that in the least bit. So the hearing starts, and they call Dr. Vogelbaum up, and we see that Butcher's successful in getting Vogelbaum to come to the hearing, and he goes up there, swears that he'll tell the truth, and before he can start talking, the judge's head explodes, and then his head explodes, and then 45 other people's head explodes, and I was just sitting there like, oh my gosh, I didn't know what was going on. We saw the same thing happen to the, I can't remember if it was the CIA or the FBI director, but you know who I'm talking about, the woman, and I can't think of her name for some reason, but we saw the same thing happen to her in episode 1, and I kind of forgot about it, and then we still don't know who did it. I have my suspicions. You can kind of see that even Homelander and Stormfront are kind of looking around, and they're shocked. They don't really know what's going on, or at least I think they don't. But if you want my opinion, I think that it is the bald suit that we saw in the last episode that was able to, crush things with her mind, basically, because we saw her crush all of those doors and crush that big metal can, and in my opinion it's her. I think that they didn't show her in this episode for that reason, to make you speculate on who it was, but I think in the next episode, in the season finale, that it'll be revealed that that's who it was. And if it is her, like I said last week, she has got some major power, and they really ended this episode on a cliffhanger. Definitely the best episode of the series, I think, and it was just crazy. So before I give you my final score, make sure to tell me down in the comments below what you thought of this episode. What would you grade it out of 10? And make sure to like and subscribe as well if you want more content regarding The Boys and other content about movies and TV. So like I said, I think that this is the best episode of the series. No question. I had a great time watching it. It really kept me engaged for the entire hour. It never slowed down either. I don't really like giving out 10s, but I can't give this episode anything less than a 10. I didn't know how they were going to top last week's, and then, like I said, they just took it up about 4 more levels, and I don't really see how they're going to top this in the season finale next week, and I don't have any clue where they're going to go in the season finale. So, thank you for watching. Like I said, make sure to like and subscribe, comment what you thought about the episode. Did you like it? Did you not like it? What do you think is going to happen next week? Thank you for watching. Keep watching movies, keep watching TV, and keep watching The Boys.